I couldn't sleep that night. Every creak of the house felt like a warning, every shadow a threat. My mind kept replaying the blinking red light, taunting me with questions I didn't have answers to. Who would do something like this? And why in Claire's home? The thought that David might be involved made my skin crawl, but accusing him without proof felt reckless and dangerous. The next morning I woke up early, my body stiff from tossing and turning all night. As I stepped into the kitchen, I found David already there, sipping coffee while scrolling through his phone. He glanced up at me with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Morning, Emma," he said smoothly. "Sleep well?" "Not really," I admitted, trying to gauge his reaction. "The guest room feels off." He shrugged casually, as if my comment meant nothing. "It's an old house. Lots of quirks." His tone was dismissive, but the way his fingers tightened around his mug told me otherwise. Something about him screamed calculated indifference, like he was performing for an audience only he could see. Later that day, I decided to test Claire. We were sitting in the living room, unpacking wedding gifts, when I casually brought up security cameras. "You know," I started, keeping my voice light, "a lot of people are installing hidden cameras these days. Supposedly it helps with safety." Claire froze mid-unwrapping, her hands hovering over a porcelain vase. For a split second I thought she might confess something, but then she laughed nervously. "Yeah, I guess so. But we don't have any of those. Right, David?" She called out to him, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "Nope," David replied from the other room, his tone clipped. "Just your standard locks and alarms." I watched Claire closely after that exchange. Her face had gone pale, and she avoided meeting my eyes. It was subtle but undeniable. A crack in her carefully constructed facade. I wanted to grab her by the shoulders and shake her until the truth spilled out, but I knew better. Pushing too hard might drive her further away, or worse, alert David that I was onto him. That evening, as I pretended to browse social media on my phone, I noticed something odd. A notification popped up from Claire's shared photo album. A picture of the guest room taken just hours earlier. In the background, barely visible, was the faint outline of the camera lens. Someone had been in that room after I'd covered it up. My heart sank. If David, or whoever was behind this, knew I'd discovered the camera, what would they do next? And how far was I willing to go to protect my sister? I finally decided to confront Claire, but not before gathering more evidence. As I closed the photo app, a chilling realization hit me. The angle of the shot suggested the picture hadn't been taken by Claire or David. It had come from outside the window. Someone else was watching us. The investigation begins. And things get worse. The next morning, I woke up determined to find answers. Sleep deprivation had left me groggy, but adrenaline surged through my veins like caffeine. I needed to figure out who was behind this, and fast. I started by searching the house while everyone was distracted. Claire and Olivia were busy planning brunch, and David was supposedly at work. The first place I checked was the basement, a dimly lit space filled with boxes and forgotten furniture. As I rummaged through the clutter, I stumbled upon a locked cabinet tucked away in the corner. My instincts screamed that it was important. Using a bobby pin I borrowed from Olivia, I managed to pick the lock. Inside, I found a collection of external hard drives and USB sticks, neatly labeled with dates spanning the past year. My stomach churned as I realized what they likely contained. Surveillance footage. Before I could investigate further, I heard the sound of footsteps above me. Panic set in as I quickly relocked the cabinet and slipped upstairs, pretending to be looking for snacks in the kitchen. When I saw Claire, I forced a casual smile. "Hey, just grabbing some chips. You guys want anything?" She shook her head absently, her attention focused elsewhere. "No thanks. Hey, have you seen David? He said he'd be back by now." Her words sent a jolt of fear through me. If David returned and caught me snooping, things could escalate quickly. I needed to act fast. Later that afternoon, I confided in Olivia. She was the baby of the family, often dismissed as naive, but she had a sharp mind and a knack for noticing details others missed. After hearing my suspicions, her eyes widened in shock. "Are you serious? That's insane." "I know it sounds crazy," I whispered, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "But I need your help. Can you distract Claire while I dig deeper?" Olivia hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Okay, but be careful, This is serious. Armed with her support, I returned to the basement later that night. This time I plugged one of the USB drives into my laptop. What I saw made my blood run cold. Hours of footage from various rooms in the house, including intimate moments between Claire and David. It was invasive, violating, and utterly horrifying. Suddenly, the sound of the door creaking open startled me. I turned to see Mr. Thompson, our neighbor, standing in the doorway holding a flashlight. His expression was unreadable, but his presence felt menacing. "What are you doing down here?" he asked, his voice low and steady. I froze, unsure of how to respond. How much did he know? And why was he in Claire's house? I stared at Mr. Thompson, my heart pounding like a trapped bird against my ribs. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness of the basement, illuminating his weathered face. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was suffocating, heavy with unspoken accusations. I was just looking for some old photo albums," I stammered, trying to sound casual despite the panic coursing through me. "Claire mentioned they might be down here." Mr. Thompson's lips curled into a thin smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Funny. David asked me to check on something in the house while he was out. Said it was urgent." His tone was calm, almost conversational, but there was an undercurrent of menace beneath his words. My mind raced. Why would David send him here? Was this a coincidence? Or had he somehow figured out what I was doing? I forced myself to stay composed, even as my palms grew slick with sweat. "Oh, really? What's he having you check on?" Before he could answer, Olivia's voice called from upstairs. "Emma, Claire wants you." Her timing couldn't have been better, or worse. If she hadn't interrupted, I wasn't sure how I'd have gotten out of that situation without raising suspicion. "Better go see what your sister needs," Mr. Thompson said, stepping aside but keeping his gaze fixed on me. There was something predatory in the way he watched me leave, like a hawk eyeing its prey. As soon as I reached the top of the stairs, Olivia grabbed my arm and pulled me into the hallway. "What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I think Mr. Thompson knows something," I whispered urgently. "He caught me in the basement. God, Liv, I don't know who to trust anymore." Olivia frowned, her brow furrowing. "Wait, why would David send him over here? That doesn't make sense unless..." She trailed off, her eyes widening. "Unless David's not working alone." The thought sent a chill down my spine. If David had accomplices, this was bigger and more dangerous than I'd imagined. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I snuck back into the basement. This time I found a folder tucked away in the same cabinet as the hard drives. Inside were printed emails between David and someone named JT. The messages were cryptic, but one stood out. "Keep monitoring her movements. We need leverage." Leverage? Against who? Claire. Or maybe even me. I finally decided to confront Claire, but not before gathering more evidence. Because if I was wrong, I risked destroying our family forever. David's dark past. And a sister's betrayal. The next morning, I woke up exhausted but determined. Armed with the emails and screenshots of the surveillance footage, I cornered Claire in the kitchen while David was out running errands. Her hands trembled as she sipped her coffee, clearly sensing that something was off. "Claire, we need to talk," I began, sliding the papers across the table toward her. "This is serious." Her eyes widened as she scanned the documents, her face draining of color. "Where did you get this?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "You had no right to." "No right." I interrupted, my frustration boiling over. "Claire, there's a camera in the guest room. Someone's been spying on us. And these emails suggest David's involved. How can you defend him after seeing this?" She hesitated, tears welling up in her eyes. For a moment, I thought she might break down and admit everything. But then her expression hardened, and she shoved the papers back at me. "You don't understand, Emma. You're making things worse." "What do you mean?" I asked, my stomach sinking. "Claire, if you know something, you need to tell me." She looked away, her jaw clenched. "David's not perfect, okay? But he loves me. He's protecting me. From people who want to hurt us." "Protecting you? By spying on you?" I shot back, incredulous. "That's not protection, it's control." Before she could respond, Olivia burst into the room, her face pale. Guys, you need to see this. She held up Claire's phone, which she'd borrowed earlier to charge. On the screen was a series of text messages between Claire and David, not affectionate exchanges but arguments. One message stood out. If you say anything to Emma, I swear I'll make sure she regrets it. Claire snatched the phone from Olivia, her hands trembling. You shouldn't have looked at that, she muttered, avoiding our eyes. Claire, what is going on? I pressed, my voice rising. Why are you covering for him? Her response was barely audible. Because I don't have a choice. The truth comes out, but not without a fight. That night I couldn't sleep. Claire's words haunted me. I don't have a choice. What did she mean? Was she truly trapped? Or was she complicit in whatever David was planning? Determined to find answers, I turned to Olivia. She was the only person I trusted completely now. Sitting cross-legged on her bed, I laid out everything I knew. There's more to this than we realize, I said. We need to figure out why David's so obsessed with controlling Claire. And who else is involved? Olivia nodded thoughtfully. Remember when Claire started dating David? She dropped out of grad school suddenly, remember? Everyone thought it was because she wanted to focus on their relationship. But what if it was something else? Her observation hit me like a punch to the gut. Could David have manipulated her into giving up her dreams? It wouldn't surprise me, not after everything I'd discovered. The next day, I decided to dig deeper into David's past. Using public records and social media, I pieced together fragments of his history. What I found chilled me to the bone. Restraining orders filed by 2 ex-girlfriends, both alleging emotional abuse and stalking. One order specifically mentioned hidden cameras in their homes. Armed with this new information, I confronted Claire again. This time I didn't hold back. Claire, David's dangerous. He's done this before to other women. You can't keep defending him. For a long moment she said nothing. Then quietly she admitted, I know. You know. I repeated, stunned. And you stayed with him anyway? It's complicated, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. He has photos of me, of us. He said if I left, he'd release them. Ruin my career. My life. My anger flared, but I forced myself to stay calm. We'll fix this, I promised. Together. But as I left her room, I realized we weren't alone in this fight. Someone else was watching and waiting. A neighbor's secret. And another hidden camera. By now, I was certain Mr. Thompson was involved. His sudden appearances, his connection to David, it all pointed to collusion. Determined to uncover the truth, I began observing him more closely. Every time he walked his dog past our house, every time he lingered outside longer than necessary, I noted it. One evening, while Claire and David were out at dinner, I decided to investigate his property. Sneaking through the shadows, I peered into his garage window and froze. Inside was a wall covered in photographs, maps, and notes. Some of the photos were of Claire. Others were of me. Suddenly, a hand clamped down on my shoulder. I spun around to find Mr. Thompson standing behind me, his expression grim. You shouldn't be here, he growled. I know what you're doing. I spat, my fear giving way to fury. You and David, you're using Claire. Why? His grip tightened painfully. It's none of your business, he hissed. Stay out of it or you'll regret it. Just then, headlights illuminated the driveway. David's car. Panic surged through me as Mr. Thompson dragged me toward the side gate. Before disappearing into the night, he whispered, Tell anyone about this and Claire will pay the price. Shaken but resolute, I returned home. I needed proof, irrefutable evidence, that would expose them once and for all. Because this wasn't just about Claire anymore. It was about Surviva. Chuang 6. Breaking point. And a cry for help. Claire was unraveling. The weight of David's manipulation, combined with the stress of my discoveries, had pushed her to the edge. One morning I found her sitting on the bathroom floor, clutching her knees and staring blankly at the wall. Her usually immaculate hair was tangled, her face pale and drawn. Claire, I whispered, kneeling beside her. What's wrong? She didn't respond immediately, her eyes glassy as if she were somewhere far away. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. I can't do this anymore, Emma. I feel like I'm drowning. My heart ached for her, but I knew pity wasn't enough. We need to get you out of here, I said firmly. You're not safe with him. But Claire shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. It's not that simple. If I leave, he'll destroy me. He has everything: photos, messages, recordings. He knows exactly how to hurt me. Her words sent a wave of fury through me. David wasn't just controlling her. He was systematically dismantling her sense of self-worth. It was psychological warfare, and I couldn't let it continue. That afternoon, I reached out to an old friend from college, Rachel, who now worked as a private investigator. After explaining the situation, Rachel agreed to help, but warned me that confronting David would be dangerous. People like him don't give up easily, she cautioned. You need to tread carefully. Meanwhile, David's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He started monitoring Claire's every move, questioning her about phone calls and texts. At one point, he even accused her of having an affair because she'd spent too long talking to Olivia in the kitchen. Watching him berate her made my blood boil, but I forced myself to stay calm. Losing control wouldn't help anyone. By the end of the week, I realized we needed professional intervention. I contacted a domestic abuse hotline and arranged a meeting with a counselor who specialized in coercive relationships. But convincing Claire to go wasn't easy. I can't, she insisted, her voice trembling. If he finds out. He won't, I promised. Not if we plan this carefully. As I left her room that night, I felt a flicker of hope, but also a deepening dread. David wasn't going to let her go without a fight. The final confrontation. And facing the truth. The next few days were a blur of tension and secrecy. With Rachel's help, I gathered more evidence against David. Bank records showing suspicious transactions, security footage from outside Mr. Thompson's house, and screenshots of threatening texts. Each piece of the puzzle painted a clearer picture of their sinister collaboration. But the real turning point came when Claire accidentally overheard David arguing with Mr. Thompson late one night. They thought she was asleep, but she'd been lying awake, plagued by insomnia. Their voices carried through the thin walls, loud enough for her to catch snippets of their conversation. You said you could handle her, David snapped. If she talks, we're both screwed. She won't talk, Mr. Thompson replied coldly. Not unless you want those photos leaked. When Claire confronted me the next morning, her face was pale but resolute. I heard them last night, she admitted. They're working together, aren't they? Yes, I confirmed, handing her the folder of evidence. This is what I've been trying to show you. For the first time, Claire didn't push back. Instead, she sank onto the couch, clutching the papers tightly. I can't believe I let him do this to me, she murmured, her voice thick with shame. How could I have been so blind? It's not your fault, I assured her, sitting beside her. He manipulated you. That's what abusers do. They make you doubt yourself until you feel trapped. After hours of discussion, Claire finally agreed to take action. We decided to record a confession using my phone. A risky move, but necessary if we wanted concrete proof. As she set up the recording device, I couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and determination. This was it, the moment of reckoning. When David returned home later that evening, Claire confronted him. At first, he denied everything, his charm slipping into outright hostility. But as the conversation escalated, his mask crumbled, revealing the monster beneath. By the end of the night, we had all the evidence we needed. Now it was time to bring him down. Exposing the truth. And chaos unleashed. The next morning, I called the police. Handing over the folder of evidence felt surreal. Like watching a dam burst after years of pressure. Detective Martinez, the officer assigned to our case, listened intently as I recounted everything. From the hidden cameras to David's threats. This is serious, she said gravely. We'll need statements from everyone involved. When Claire gave her testimony, her hands trembled so badly she could barely hold the pen. But she didn't falter, not once. For the first time in months, I saw a glimmer of strength in her eyes. David's arrest was swift and humiliating. When the officers arrived at the house, he tried to deny everything, his polished demeanor cracking under the weight of the evidence. You'll regret this, he snarled at Claire as they led him away in handcuffs. No one will ever trust you again. His words were meant to wound, but they only solidified Claire's resolve. I don't care anymore, she told me later, her voice steady. Let him say whatever he wants. I'm done being afraid. Meanwhile, Mr. Thompson vanished overnight, leaving behind an empty house and a trail of unanswered questions. Though frustrating, his disappearance was a small victory. We'd cut off one of David's key allies. But the fallout wasn't over yet. News of the investigation spread quickly. Thanks to nosy neighbors and relentless gossip, friends stopped calling, colleagues whispered behind Claire's back, and even some family members questioned her decisions. It was a painful reminder that exposing the truth often comes at a cost. Through it all, I stood by Claire's side, refusing to let her face the storm alone. Rebuilding and finding strength. In the weeks that followed, Claire began the slow process of rebuilding her life. Therapy sessions became a lifeline, helping her untangle the web of lies David had woven around her. She reconnected with old friends, rediscovered hobbies she'd abandoned, and even enrolled in online courses to finish her degree. Watching her heal filled me with pride, but also sadness. How much time had she lost? How many dreams had been crushed under the weight of David's control? To support her, I threw myself into advocacy work. Inspired by Claire's ordeal, I joined a local organization dedicated to raising awareness about domestic abuse and surveillance tactics. Sharing her story, not publicly but within trusted circles, helped others recognize similar patterns in their own lives. One day, as we sat together on the porch sipping coffee, Claire turned to me with a small smile. "Thank you," she said softly. "I wouldn't have made it through this without you." "You're stronger than you think," I replied, squeezing her hand. "You always have been." Still, the scars remained. Claire struggled with anxiety and trust issues, often jumping at sudden noises or second-guessing strangers' intentions. But she was learning to navigate her new reality, one step at a time. As for me, I'd learned invaluable lessons about boundaries, resilience, and the importance of speaking up, even when it feels impossible. Our family dynamic had shifted, but in many ways it was stronger than ever. Yet, the journey wasn't over. There were still lingering questions about Mr. Thompson, unresolved fears about retaliation, and countless nights spent wondering if we'd truly escaped unscathed. But for the first time in months, hope outweighed fear. A new beginning. And lessons learned ***. Months later, the dust had settled, or as much as it ever could. David's trial revealed shocking details about his past crimes, including financial fraud and stalking charges. He was sentenced to prison, while authorities continued their search for Mr. Thompson. Though justice felt incomplete, it was enough to give us closure. Claire thrived in her newfound freedom. She landed a job at a marketing firm, moved into her own apartment, and started dating again, this time with healthy boundaries firmly in place. Seeing her laugh genuinely and freely reminded me of the sister I'd missed for so long. Our relationship had changed, too. We were closer now, bonded by shared trauma and triumph. Conversations flowed easier, secrets disappeared, and mutual respect replaced the tension that had once defined us. Looking back, I realized this experience had taught me something profound. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival. Whether it's protecting yourself from toxic relationships or standing up for loved ones, saying no can be the bravest thing you ever do. One evening, as we celebrated Claire's promotion over dinner, she raised her glass. "To family," she said, smiling. "And to second chances." "To second chances," I echoed, clinking my glass against hers. Life wasn't perfect, we still carried scars, still faced challenges, but we were stronger because of them. Together, we'd survived the darkness and emerged into the light. And that, I realized, was worth everything.